So based on advanced research, I have extrapolated the perfect Blighted Rounds build.
That sentence had too many syllables. Apologize!
But don't you want to hear the exponential growth damage equation for this build?
Boring! You don't want to hear about that, Vault Hunter. You want to hear about loot and packs and explosions. I'm Torgue, and I'm here to ask you one question and one question only. Explosions?
You're right, let's do an explosions build, but with extra rocket launchers. Hey guys, Leeroy from Leeroy Gaming here, bringing you another new build for Outriders. Now, a couple weeks back, I had released my Explosions build, but I had a lot of feedback that people were saying, hey Leeroy, why aren't you including a rocket launcher? You're doing shrapnel, all this stuff, this AOE blow up ability, but no rocket launcher. So I said, you know what, let me go back to the drawing board and create you guys a rocket build version. So here we are. This is going to be the rocket launcher edition of my explosions build. It's a lot of fun. Now I want to do a disclaimer here, especially after my last video. With my videos in general, I go thematic. These are my spins on different builds. I try to make them enjoyable for a variety of people. And are there scenarios where you could like min-max and make some changes? Sure. Of course they can. Are there more powerful, more max DPS builds out there? Sure, but I'm not comparing this to a Blight build or anything else out there. This is the type of build I'm making. This is an explosion-based build using rocket launchers, using shrapnels, and that's all it's supposed to be. So again, hopefully you guys enjoy the build. If you do, make sure leave a like. If you don't like it, that's okay as well. Also want to throw it out there, guys. Again, we have a great growing Discord that's all about Outriders right now for Leeroy Game. Make sure you check that out in the description below. And also, if you want some help getting this this build up and running, or you just want help with your character, don't forget that I stream 6 days a week now on Twitch. You can see, get a link to that below. Also on the Twitch page, you can see my schedule that's always up to date with all the times. You guys can come in, get CT 15 carries for free. Doesn't matter what level you are, level 2, CT 10, CT 1. Everybody's welcome. And I even have room for all of you high EP players. If you want to become one of my Riders that come and assist, that's always great fun. So make sure to check that out. With that being said, guys, let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at what it takes to create this build, the rocket launcher edition of the Explosions build. Okay, we're going to start by taking a look at the skills. So we're going to start with Blighted Turrets. That's going to be your kind of spammable ability. That's going to get your kind of decay procs going. Your main DPS ability actually is going to be Scrapnel. And then you're going to have tools of destruction, and we're going to be using basically the rocket launcher version of this. So those are the 3 actual skills. Now let's take a look at the skill tree. So the skill tree, you're going to notice I've made some changes compared to what you would call a traditional demolisher build. I'm trying to make it a little extra tanky. So this build, even without some of the defensive modifications, is very, very, very good in groups. But what I have found is it was initially a bit squishy when playing solo. So you'd burn things, but sometimes something would one-shot you or two-shot you and kind of ruin all your fun. So I've put in a couple fail-safes here, as you're going to see, to kind of help up your resistances and make sure you're nice and tanky. So we're going to take the traditional route down the bottom here. Making sure we pick up Ordnance Technician. We're going to get the first Anita plates here. Got to make sure we get Adrenalizing Antenna. That's key. As we go across here, this is pretty standard. We're basically avoiding any of the toxic damage. That's not going to be a major part of this build, even though we have the toxic turret. We ourselves are not going to be using toxic outside of that. We're going to get Armored Unit. This is big because this is going to help us get our armor nice and high, because baseline our armor isn't that high. And then, of course, this nice Team Player, lowering the damage take from elites by 10%. That can't be understated. And Tech Bond at the bottom here. Now, the difference here is we're going to go up the center. We're going to get Wipeout. And the biggest thing is we're coming across because we want this extra armor plates and we want this extra Anita plates. So again, this is going to give a baseline of 40% resistance. And remember, resistance is what protects you against anomaly damage. So basically all the spell damage, the non-physical damage. And also gives a little extra health, a little extra armor, so we don't get 1 or 2 shot. When that happens, we tend to kind of clear things quite effectively. All right, now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the armor and the weapon as well, guys. So let's start with the armor. Now, I do want to point out, you're going to notice baseline armor is not that very high, but this is going to get buffed up quite a bit in a moment. So we're going to start with the helmet, and this is going to be the Torrential Downpour goggles. And basically, we're going to keep the More Traps mod that comes with it. And then we're going to change the top mod into Bang for Your Buck, which is going to, when you activate skills, the skill, you're going to get 100% base ammo increase for the selected tool. So basically, our rocket launcher is going to go from 4 shots to 8 shots, and that's a really, really big difference. Of course, the main stats are perfect here. Anomaly power, skill, life leech, and cooldown reduction. Those are all huge for this build. Chest piece, again, we're going to do the Torrential Downpour armor. And we are keeping trap clusters, so doubles the number of mines that can be thrown before triggering the cooldown. And we're going to also add Demolition Man, so each rocket, there's an extra 113k base damage. Going to really help make those missiles pop really, really good. Final set piece that we're going to get are the Torrential Downpour leg armor. And now, again, same thing, Anomaly power, skill, life leech, and cooldown. Now, here's where you have the one piece of variability. You're going to keep more damage, and if you want to stay more tanky, you get Circle of Power. This will allow you to get your resistances quite high. In fact, it'll get it up to 40% base from your skill tree, and then 45 from here. You'll get 85% resistances. Now, if you want to change it for additional DPS, you can swap it out, and I'll show you in just a second the 2 options that may be viable depending on what you have. And then finally, you're gonna rather have Vagrant, Epic Gloves that again are gonna have Anomaly power, skill, life leech, and cooldown. You're gonna have your one kind of defensive hybrid ability. It's Rejuvenation. It's going to give you 14,000 firepower, which is not going to be a big deal. You're not going to be doing much gun damage. 7,000 anomaly, but then 41,000 armor. It's going to be up 80% of the time since you're constantly going to be healing. So this is why, for example, this doesn't look as high. Technically, as soon as you get into combat, proc any healing, you're going to be up to over 100k there, which is nice. And then don't forget, as soon as you use an ability, it's going to increase your armor by an additional 50% for 10 seconds. So your armor is going to be fine. Your mitigation is going to be, again, in that 75, 76% base as soon as you get going. And also don't forget Untamed Power. That's really, really big. You're going to, anytime you spam your grenades, you're going to be spamming, or the mines, 6 of them. That's going to proc the 6 times. And of course, when you use your rocket launcher as well. So this is going to be really, really useful. Untamed power, nice source of kind of AOE around you for clearing up kind of easy mobs. And then finally, we have for footgear, we have same stats again: anomaly power, cooldown reduction, skill life leech. You're going to have the supplies, which again, this final mod makes it so that you're going to have 6 throws of the shrapnel before you have to hit cooldown. And you're going to get power assimilation as well. So again, it's going to really boost. The busier the battle gets with more and more possible elites, the more this is going to pay off. So on busy maps, it's going to be really, really big. Now let's go ahead and really quick take a look at the possible changes for cyclo power if you want to go full DPS. Okay, so here we are looking at possible changes for the cyclo power slot here. So if you have it, probably the easiest and most natural change would be to add Captain Hunter. Increases your damage against elites by 25%. You can just place this and forget about it. Again, if you're not dying with Circle of Power out, then you can just make this change. If you start dying, maybe put it back in. But this is a nice safe one. Now, if you don't have it, a second one that's not bad is going to be Euthanizer. Deals 25% more damage against enemies affected by toxin. Now remember, the only thing that's causing toxic in this build is your bright turret. Now granted, you're going to throw it near any elites and they'll get peppered by this, so it'll still work. It does have the benefit that it's also going to work against normal mobs that aren't elite, unlike the Captain Hunter. But the reality is you don't really need help killing non-elites. So because this is uptime on Captain Hunter has an uptime of 100% against elites, this one theoretically could drop off or not be up all the time. So I would say this is maybe slightly better in that case. But either of those two are really, really good options if you want offense and you are not a and you you don't want to use circle power and you want to use the best offense options. Another option is Anomaly Echo. So this one again is going to main thing you care about. It's going to give you another 11,484 anomaly power when you activate a skill for 15 seconds. So I mean, this is going to be you're going to be constantly activating skills. So this will be up pretty much permanently when you're DPSing. So those are your top 3 options. You depending on what you have: Captain Hunter, Euthanizer, Anomaly Echo. Hopefully, you have one of those if you're looking for an offensive option. So I'll go ahead, for example, just put this one in here. There we go. All right, now let's take a look at the weapons. So the most important thing to know here is that you're going to have so little downtime when your abilities aren't up. So you're going to most of the time be using your rocket launcher and spamming your shrapnel. There's only going to be short periods of time, a couple of seconds here or there, when you're actually going to need to use a gun. Because of this, there are 2 realistic options that I recommend. So you want something that you can fire quickly, it has a good burst DPS, and it's easy to handle. So what it comes down to, in my opinion, is between Air to the Desert and Funeral Pyre. And they both have some strengths and weaknesses. Let me start with Funeral Pyre. Well, all we really care about, let you know, are the procs. So they're going to have Fortress on there, so it buffs all your other abilities. Now, the positive for this special for Funeral Pyre is I think it is a slightly superior proc. Every 3 seconds, you just shoot something once, does a nice 210k AOE, 3.5 meters, fire and forget, nice and easy. No, it's not damage time, it's immediate. The downside to this is this is a closer range weapon. So sometimes I like shooting at an enemy when I'm kind of approaching them and I'm out of range of my shrapnel. So you may be out of range of this weapon. Also, it's got a really long reload time. So as I mentioned previously, there's going to be very short periods of time when you actually need to use a gun. So worst case scenario is everything goes on cooldown and you realize you got to reload this weapon and you're waiting 3 seconds. At that point, you're probably already going back to the other elements. So the cooldown timer is kind of crappy. And then it also doesn't have very useful any effects here. So close range damage, healing received, and crit damage don't really help you out that much. Therefore, even though this mod does slightly more damage, my personal preference, if you have it, is to go with Arrow to the Desert. Now, this is why. The big plus for it, number one, it has status power. So even when you're not using it, it's going to help your other abilities heal you more. Sorry, not status power, skill life leech. The status power does help with your turret. The turret does the toxic damage, and that's going to be a slight boost to that, but it's not a huge deal. The other benefit here is it has a better range, so you can, when you're running up to things, you can kind of shoot them and proc the mod quicker. Also has a 1.1 second reload, so if you do run out of ammo, the reload is so fast, it's literally, you know, a third of the time of the other weapon. And now the proc, I actually did I did a couple runs and they end up parsing pretty close. The problem with this one is that it's a damage over time. It's a 5-second cooldown, which isn't that big of a deal because normally you're only going to get to do 1 or maybe 2 procs no matter what before you swap to your other abilities. But it is over 5 seconds. Now it spawns a tornado and it does move and it can hit multiple enemies, but there's also a chance the enemy moves away from the tornado or the tornado moves off the enemy and you don't get the full damage value. So that's the little bit of a risk. But again, in practice, I found they are pretty close. So all things being equal, if you have both of these, I actually recommend, and I find the Air to the Desert more enjoyable. You may say, oh, but Leeroy, we're going with theme. We're explosions. A meteor is more explosive than a tornado. Fair enough. Use the other one if you want. But those are my top 2 options for you. Special mention, the juggler. Thematically, you're launching scrap grenades. Sounds really thematic. My problem with it, you're having to reload manually after every one. And if you miss a reload or something, you're wasting time. You're wasting the proc. This can also bug out still. So because you're spending so little time with the guns, this is why the juggler is not a recommendation for it. Too much chances of you messing up, and then if you're trying to reload again and you spend too much time on a gun when you could be going back to your abilities. So again, in ranking order, I would say Air to the Desert number 1, then Funeral Pyre, and then whatever else you can pick whatever after that if you want it, because again, you could even have total junk here. It's not going to matter. 99% of your damage is probably going to be, well, maybe not 99%, but a good portion of your time and damage is going to be with the abilities. Now, let's look at secondary weapons. So you'll notice I have the guillotine here. So this is for your optional moaning wind spam. As I mentioned, you're spamming the other abilities so much, you don't even really need this, but it would be disingenuous if I didn't tell you about this, because there are times where this could burst your DPS a little bit. So you can have it. If you're adamant at not using moaning winds, don't worry, you'll do perfectly fine without it. Now, this is a gun people don't normally use. The reason I use it is in the build, you noticed we have no way of adding vulnerability through our skill tree based the way I built it out for kind of having some defense. So this is one way to apply it. So you notice when you use your moaning wind, it's also going to do radiation splash, which is another 100k damage, and it's going to apply vulnerability in a 5-meter range. So if you're fighting like an elite, you may want to swap over to this proc it once, just so you get the vulnerability, so you get that a little extra couple seconds of elevated DPS when you're back to using your skills. Also, as a nice benefit, when you swap over, you still have status power and skill life leech, so you're not losing that. And then finally, I have a Torment and Agony on here. Again, you will statistically probably never have time to use it, but you can throw it on there. This is just another Moaning Wind backup. But again, unlike many other builds, you probably won't have time for a triple rotation. It's more likely do your main rotation of skills, and then sometimes shoot Air to the Desert, and then maybe sometimes use the Guillotine. If you don't have the Guillotine, of course, you can do the second best setup would be Death Shield, right? With Moaning Winds, or its kind of sister setup, the Anomaly. Both will have Fortress on there and Moaning Winds, again, for that same option. So you have 3 different weapons that technically I feel could do a pretty good job here. But I recommend the Guillotine if you can get it. All right, guys, next we're going to do kind of a weapon and skill tutorial. So for this, I'm going to be using, we're going to pretend that Tiago here is an elite mob as you're approaching. So the rotation is pretty simple. Normally, when I'm out of range of my main abilities, my shrapnel, which is basically what you're going to be spamming the most, I want to go and shoot him. As soon as you hit the proc, it should proc the tornado. Now, as you approach, first thing I like to drop really quick is the turret, because that's going to buff our anomaly power, so it's going to increase the damage on everything else. And as you run up, you're going to want to drop these bombs. Now, what you don't want to do, you don't really want to throw it at their face, like that threw it over. But if this was an enemy, the reason you don't want to throw it in their faces, sometimes it bugs out and it blows up, but then it doesn't spawn the extra explosions that normally come with the set bonus. So if you take a quick look at the set bonus, it says Scrapnel creates additional cluster bombs after explosions, each dealing 122,000 damage, and it scales with anomaly power, right? So if you hit them in the face, for example, in the body, sometimes they don't spawn. So all you kind of do is aim down just a little bit and just have it go to the side, and they're going to run into it. It's going to proc it, and they're going to pop up into the sky and blow up, okay? Now, you always want this on cooldown. So even if you're kind of kiting away, let's say they're up, again, just trying this again, you know, there a bunch of enemies, you're going to drop this, drop this, drop this, okay? Now, I will also sometimes in the middle just quickly do a shot, get the tornado up again, right? As soon as you're out, then you're going to make sure that the gun is on cooldown, your tornado's on cooldown, and then you're going to activate your missile launcher. Now you can start shooting the enemy. Now, if you notice that your shrapnel is off cooldown, you're going to stop the rocket launchers immediately. The rocket launcher is not the priority. Shrapnel is always the priority. It's going to be your top damage. So spam this out. Don't forget to get the turret out if it's not out. And then go back to this. So if you look at my timing, all right, doing missiles. All right, it's been a couple seconds. I'm going to drop another one because remember, the buff lasts about 10 seconds. And look, I'm almost out. I just ran out, and now this is up again. Okay, now we're back to the gun, and I'm going to proc it real quick, and I'm going to go back to dropping this. Count in your head, it's about 5 seconds or so. Hit him again. Oh, another tornado will come out. All right. Now, here's the rare situation here where you see where they're both on cooldown. So you could theoretically run up and, you know, proc your moaning winds here. I didn't pre-prep it, but you get the idea. And by the time you do moaning winds, you're probably back. All right. So let me kind of show you. That's kind of me talking it through. Now let me kind of show you how it kind of plays out here. So I'm going to, first of all, beginning of the run. This shotgun does fire really slow. So you want to make sure you empty it early on, so it's nice and prepped. Okay. So now here we go. I'm going to initiate. I'm running up. Get that? Imagine tornado there. This goes, drops. That's up. Spam. It's up again. Boom. That's down. Bring this out. Missile launcher. Shooting missile. Shooting missile. Shooting missile. Get another turret out again. There we go. Shrapnel's back out. Start spamming it. Get another turret out as soon as it's ready to go. Okay, everything's cool down. Swap over to here. Boom. Back to normal. Get it up. And then continue with the rotation. You notice already shrapnel is back. It was only a couple of seconds when it wasn't down. And now you're going to basically be rinsing and repeating. Again, whenever you remember, get your tornado procced and rinse and repeat. Boom. And now that's back. Get the tornado going. Back to the missile launcher. And there you go. Just like that. That, guys, is the kill pattern process, whether you are fighting an elite or small mobs. Also to note, with the missile launcher, similar to with the enemy, with the shrapnel, I recommend shooting at the feet of the enemy if you can. Mainly because sometimes if you're aiming, like, say, at the head, you could technically overshoot it and miss. And then there goes that. But if you're shooting at the ground, they're still going to take full damage. You're going to be exploding things near them, and you're less likely to overshoot and miss. So both the shrapnel mines as well as the missile launcher, make sure you aim kind of at the ground and to the side. Final thing to note, be careful. If you have that missile launcher out, make sure you use all the missiles before you swap to a moaning winds. Because if you swap weapons, it will quite literally put the weapon on cooldown. You will lose all that ammo. You will probably mess that up at least once when you're doing your little training and getting used to it. But that is the optimal rotation for this build. Okay, so that's everything you need to know about building this build. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and jump in. I'm going to show you a CT15 run through, gold times, real nice and easy. Now, do know in this specific equipment layout and loadout, rather, it used a more defensive variant. So in the legs, you got the defensive resistance building modification. You can very easily, as I mentioned in a previous section, you can modify and put Captain Hunter in there or Euthanizer, for example, if you want to up your DPS. But again, if you're playing solo, because of the fact that you can so easily get one shot or two shot in this game if you don't have enough resistances, that would literally kill your run. So if you're running solo, you may want to have the slightly more defensive version of this. Or if you like to play with fire and be more glass cannoning, go ahead, do the modifications. Your resistances are going to be decent anyway at 40% the way this is built. Or if you're in a group play. Honestly, if you're in a group play, since somebody else could res you if you do fall, you may just want to go ham and add that extra DPS modification to really get, show off to your friends and get the most out of it. So again, without further ado, again, guys, let's go and jump in and take a look at this run.
found one of our pods. And as a bonus, we can all start bathing again.
Excellent. That water's gonna be a lifesaver, Outrider.
Access granted.
I'll be sure to bring people the good news.
Okay, we're going to take a quick look at the damage numbers. Do note that this is in 13.5 minutes roughly, 222 million damage. It's not your maximal damage setup because it has that defensive mod in. You could get an extra 25% damage potentially if you go to full offense. Now we are using the shotgun, hence you're going to see Shadow Comet damage, but the Air of the Desert does pretty similar damage. Big damage is Scrapnel RPG of Destruction set bonus. That's most of your damage. Notice Moaning Winds is minuscule. We barely use it. So very, very good, consistent DPS. All right, guys. And so that is my new and improved Explosions build with the Rocket Launcher Edition included. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this build. Do give it a shot. Would love to hear your comments below. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, if you want help with your build, if you want to kind of help with your character, or if you just want to join me and play Outriders together, I do stream on Twitch 6 days a week. Check the link below. And on Twitch, you're going to find there's a schedule tab so you can see all the times, the days and times that I do stream. That gets updated whenever changes need to be made. Again, you can get free CT15 carries with me there. Or if you already have a good character and you want to join kind of our Lee Rider squad, which are basically my regulars that come and help and assist, you can come and join that as well. Hope to see you there. And as always, guys, if you're loving the content, loving what I do, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Join me for the premieres of my videos. Love doing the little Q&A that always pops up during the premieres. And I will see you guys in the next video.